let's move on to something else that's looming up, and there's a deadline that's coming up on the 27th of August in regards to the 1/3 gender or 2/3 gender rule. And Naiboy MP Samuel Chepkonga has wrote in a motion which says we should sort of delay. What are your thoughts, Noah, on that?
Yesterday I was watching a very comprehensive report being presented by Yvonne Okwara on KTN, and she shared the results of a study done by the Institute for Economic Affairs on the popularity of women in leadership. And apparently 52% of Kenyans feel as though the 1/3 gender rule must be implemented by the deadline set. I think this is a very important constitutional issue, because I'm informed by my lawyer colleagues, perhaps they'll be able to tell us more, that in the event that the 27th comes and goes, any voter of sound mind can go to the Supreme Court to seek constitutional interpretation of the matters arising and seek disbandment of the National Assembly because it's improperly constituted.
Right?
Yeah. So this is definitely something that we have to make a deliberate effort towards resolving, and not just burying our heads in the sand. Yeah.
All right, Weda.
Yes.
Some of the argument that has gone forth is that if we stick to the deadline of the 27th,
yes,
we stand the risk of just filling it for the sake of,
yes,
rather than having quality leaders who are there, who over time, have been elected or have been appointed. What's your take on that?
I think even my view is this: the gender has been watered down to mean women or men. In fact, it is so simplistic that when you go to a meeting, even in the village, they say, if they don't see a lady, they say, gender, weka gender. Yet, you will find a lady like the late Wangari Maathai, some people in parliament who believe, who understand what gender empowerment is all about. One lady would be like 100 of them. So this gender rule has been watered down to a level of getting seats, getting jobs, not affirmative action, ensuring that ladies, because men over the years and historically have took advantage of the high up. So affirmative action is to push ladies to take those steps that push the female gender to an equal level in terms of all resources at all levels. Now, it has been watered down to mean jobs. Well, let's have a third of ladies in parliament. Let us have a third of ladies in MCA, which is, it turns up into a negation. But I think because the Constitution says we need to do it,
I will make sure that there's a sunset clause. I remember telling the committee of experts that they needed to create some form of a greenhouse to ensure that they insulate elective bodies from this kind of constitutional crisis. Yeah, they needed to just provide for what are called maybe affirmative action seats or women's seats or whatever seats they might be called, just a standard 50 or so, which then have a certain quality or qualification, so that then they can be able to know that this constituency is just serving the affirmative action agenda, and in making sure that it's empowering people who are either to marginalized or disadvantaged to participate in a more credible and competitive manner in the space of national politics. That was what we needed to do, and it needs to affirm people who already have an interest. You just don't take your galaxy of friends and allies. That woman must have demonstrated she has tried once or twice to run for election and has lost, but not because she is incompetent, but because she's a woman. And therefore, you don't just go and just pull off anybody. And then the affirmative action rule must only apply once to any individual. We affirm you only once. If you're affirming Michael, we will not affirm you again. You cannot be a career nominee.
Right.
Yeah, you cannot want to be nominated in 2012, 2013, 2017, 2022. So it must only affirm you once, so that it gives space to others, so that they are also affirmed in that request. And then there must be a sunset clause.
Okay.
You can't do, everywhere affirmative action has been implemented, it is not an indefinite action, because then it also has issues of rights and discrimination. Because then if you tell me all the time that you're going to affirm somebody, you are discriminating me against my classmate constantly. It could be a lady who is beating me every day in class. Why does she need affirmation? She just needs a structure or a system that is now more liberal enough to think that women enjoy equal opportunity. So there must be a sunset clause at 20. But then also, finally, the women leaders, particularly the elected ones, they shouldn't start, using this intimidation until we will mobilize the women constituency to vote you out if you do not do this. That kind of intimidation does not work. Why didn't you mobilize them to vote you in the first place? That kind of, dogmatic.
So what's the solution?
For me, I think the men people in elective positions must be bold enough, courageous enough to implement this gender rule. But then we must work progressively to ensure that we streamline it, that these nominations mean people's lives are going to be better off. We delete the fact that it is not just a job creation mechanism, as Weda has put it very eloquently. Thirdly, we must make sure that there is a sunset clause, and then it must affirm people who are really disadvantaged. I don't see when we have a PhD how you are disadvantaged. You must be somebody who has come from a certain geography of this country, where the only reason maybe he has made it to where he or she is God, rather than even a government. And then affirm that type of approach.